What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now. And yo, we got an interesting conversation today. Interesting conversation. Partly interesting because I'm interviewing my cousin. But the other part of it is he has an interesting story, and it's pretty doggone unique. And we like to share unique stories on Black Fathers Now of, you know, brothers that are doing amazing things, that are impacting the world in their own way, but then the lessons they learn along the way and how that applies back to fatherhood. And so without further ado, I have my man, Marlon, I don't even know his name. Now we got Marlon Pennington on the show today. You know, and Marlon's my cousin. He's based out of the Los Angeles area. He was born and raised in Compton, right? Yeah, born and raised in Compton. And he's currently the owner of Penny Transportation. So, you know, he has a trucking company in which he goes all over the country delivering some of the goods that you all are consuming. Now, this is airing a few weeks after we tape it, but he might have delivered some of that bad lettuce that y'all were eating. I'm just playing. But no, he has Penny Transportation. You know, he's a dad. And another thing that's cool about his situation, he actually married into fatherhood as well. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. But we're going to kind of jump into his journey, his story, and see how this thing can impact some of you guys' lives. So without further ado, I want to welcome my man, my cousin, Marlon Pennington. What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
I'll be trying to be all LA cool. What's up, yo? Straight up over here on the West Coast, cuz. You know what I'm saying, man? No. What's going on, man? Appreciate you on the show, man.
Oh, yeah, man.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I guess I got to walk you through this thing. So, Marlon, tell us a little bit about where you're from. And okay, all right, I'm sorry, man. But long story short, man, tell us a little bit about, you know, where you're from and a little bit about how you grew up and all that good stuff, man.
I was born and raised in Compton. I was always into sports, played football, went to Gardena High School. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what I wanted to go for, so I kind of held back on that. I felt like I wanted to use sports to pay for my college and give me a higher education. Once that didn't happen, it was like, all right, now the real life is happening, so let's figure out what we're going to do. I had a lot of little hints that I probably wanted to be a firefighter or something in that sense, get a good job. And when that didn't work out, just like, I knew that I didn't want a desk job. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be somewhere where I had to punch a clock in 9 to 5 and stay in one place every day. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be out and about. So I had different gigs where I drove a cargo van and delivered packages, and that was cool, but the end result is it wasn't bringing in enough money for me to advance in where I wanted to be.
Now you say you drove a cargo van. Now, were you working for a company, or is that something that you created yourself, or what was the deal with that?
It was like an up-and-coming company like a FedEx, UPS, but they were on a smaller end. But same thing, where you needed your own vehicle and you delivered the packages that you picked up from the facility. It was like, I want to say like it was a part-time job, but you could make it a full-time if you pulled out more packages. But it was like one of those things. It was a stepping stone. It wasn't nothing that you could make a career out of. And that was the thing I was looking for. What I could do, what could I make a career? What could I do that was going to be suitable for my family and me to bring in money and have enough time to be at home and enjoy the stuff that I want to do at home.
Interesting. And so now, was that before or after you became an EMT? Like, were you before, or was that all in kind of the same time?
That was after I became an EMT. The EMT thing, I wanted to become a firefighter. And one guy told me, and I never forget this, he was like, becoming a firefighter is like winning the lotto. And it's one of those things where you have to have patience for it. And at that time, it was like I had a family and they needed things, and I wanted stuff too. And just being an EMT, it wasn't putting enough money on the table.
Gotcha.
So
and you were in Los Angeles, and it's interesting because the whole concept of firefighter, I grew up in Georgia, and so the notion of becoming a firefighter was just never anything that I really thought about. Like, I mean, now I see in LA, it's like, yo, it's a different game. You know what I'm saying? But where I grew up, it didn't, like, it was not something that I aspired to due to the exposure. Like, we saw firehouses and we saw firemen here or there, but it was not something that, I necessarily aspired to because of what I saw around me on a regular basis. So is that something like in LA, is the role of firefighter something that you see a lot? I mean, I know there've, recently been a lot of fires that were happening out there, but is that something that's kind of highlighted as far as, a lot of people have more exposure to that from a career perspective, or what do you, I mean, because it's just different for me coming from Augusta, Georgia to, hear like, yo, I wanted to be a firefighter. Like, as kids, we wanted to be that, you know what I'm saying, maybe, but as you got older, that, that thing kind of went to the side. Like, what about that was intriguing for you, coming from Compton, coming from LA? What was intriguing about the whole firefighter thing?
Well, one of my buddies, his brother was a firefighter, or is a firefighter. And we visited the station, and we seen like the duties that they did, and it's just like it was cool. It was like being a part of like a football team. It was like the camaraderie that you had with all the other firefighters. You eat together, sleep together. You go out, you work together. You exercise. Everything was together.
So you wanted that team, like you. It's kind of like as playing football and having the team sports aspect of growing up. It was like you were looking for that particular type of camaraderie that
exactly.
Gotcha.
And they're looked at in the community as heroes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you get paid well.
Okay. Dope.
And you get a lot of time off. So it was like it was a lot of positives with that. But the thing of, like you said, you grew up in Augusta. It's probably not that many people in Augusta as it is in Los Angeles, California.
No, probably nothing. So, ain't nowhere near.
when you get into California, it's like a mixing pot of everybody.
That's right.
So you have tens of millions of people out there, so the jobs are limited. And now it's instead of like one person testing for a job, or maybe even Augusta, maybe they may have a one position open, and maybe 20 people test. In California, they have, say for instance, I went to a test. They had 10 spots. Firefighting. They had 10 spots available.
Okay.
10,000 people tested.
Are you serious? For those 10 spots? Wow. That's gangster.
So that's why they associate. So
that makes it difficult.
Lotto.
Okay, gotcha. So that's why I get you. So the chances of getting an opportunity due to the demand and the fact that you're competing with potentially 1,000 people for one spot, makes it a challenge. And so I see where your boy was saying that, it's like winning the lotto to get a shot with the firefighter. So to that point, to improve your shots, you became an EMT, so you were doing the ambulance thing, right?
Right.
And then you also started with the transportation company doing the deliveries. That was kind of on the side at the same time, right?
Right.
Okay. And around this time is when you got married too, right?
This was before I got married.
So this is before you got married. Okay, gotcha. So you were doing all of this, kind of figuring your way and making things happen. And so at what point in this particular journey did you get married?
Well, after the EMT, I did the firefighting thing. I did it for like 3 years, and I feel like I wasn't making progress in it. And it was like, at that time, it's like people say you need to save money so that later on in life you could do things. But I said, like, I want to do things now. I want to take trips now when I'm young, where I can enjoy things and do extreme stuff now. So I had to figure out a way to make more money, and I had a cousin that was doing trucking, and I've seen the stuff that he was able to purchase and the money he had, and I was like, hey, it's not bad. So I went out on a trip with him, just looked at him, I mirrored his actions, and I was like, I could do this. So after that, when I got back from that trip, I went full-fledged and went to a truck driving school. I put in the hours and learned how to drive a truck. And the rest was history from there.
Now, how long did it take you to go from, the inspiration to do it, to going through truck driving school, to actually becoming certified and able to go out and do your thing? Like, how long is that process?
Well, the process that I took was a little different because I was still working. So I did the truck driving class. I did it as I could. So I went on the weekend. So it probably took me like 3 months, where the average person could go to a dedicated truck driving school and be done in maybe like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow, really?
They do it fast, but they probably don't learn as much as they would learn quality the way I learned. I learned it over a period of time, so I was able to let the knowledge sink in. And I wasn't like a lot of people that do truck driving now. When they go learn, they need a job right now. I already had a job, so it was just like I was just learning, and I just learned at my own pace.
You know something that this is interesting. A lot of the things that you mentioned, I roll off of a quote that exposure leads to opportunity. And so the exposure to sports early on, the camaraderie of that, made you kind of think about some type of opportunity from a job or career or a business perspective that allowed you to have that same camaraderie. But then also the notion of being exposed to your friend's brother who was a firefighter and going and really kind of getting the inner workings of that, opened up this window of opportunity for you to say, maybe I can pursue that. So you took the path of EMT to get there. Now, granted, you took another route, but at the end of the day, that exposure led to that potential opportunity. And I would even say this interesting, you doing the transport driving with the van, with the company, and might have opened your eyes to the notion of trucking even before being exposed to the actual industry with your cousin and riding with him. So, fellas, listening to the whole concept with him, exposure leads to opportunity. So as you think about life and as you start pondering, scenarios and various routes and various perspectives, remember, exposure leads to opportunity. You don't know what you don't know. So you have to expose yourself to that. So if you don't have, opportunities to expose yourself within your network, you have to step out of your comfort zone and go seek those opportunities so that you can get exposed and you can see things from a different perspective and a different vantage point, because you don't know what you don't know. Exposure leads to opportunity. And so after your certification with the truck driving, did you immediately go and buy your own truck, or did you go and work with someone for a while? How did that work?
Initially, I wanted to go buy my truck, but my cousin told me, like, hey, you need to get some experience first. So what I did was I signed on with a company, and I went to go drive with them I was going to do it for like 8 months. I went out with them for 2 weeks, and I was like, nah, this isn't it. It was like a big company. They have a high turnover rate. And the way they were treating the way they treated myself, I said it wasn't going to work for me. They didn't pay that well, but I mean, when you're new in the game and you can't get a job, I mean, you have no other choice. You have no other options. Luckily, when I got back from that 2-week span, my cousin had a guy who had his own trucking business that needed a driver, and he asked me if I still needed a job. So I went over, I interviewed with him, I did like a test drive with him, and everything worked out. And then from there, I worked with that guy for 3 months, and I feel like I got all the experience that I needed. And then that's when I purchased my own truck. I still work with that guy, but when I purchased my own truck, I used one of his trailers, and I was still part of his company, but I had my own truck. So I had half the piece of the puzzle. It was like 50%. I had a truck, he had a trailer. So we still had like a marriage. And as time went on, and he got loads and negotiated rates, I sat on the phone with him, and I learned with him on an everyday basis. I learned everything about trucking that I know. I learned from him on a day in and day out basis. I stayed on the phone with him. I stayed on the phone with him when he brokered loads or he negotiated rates, and it taught me how to talk on the phone with the brokers and negotiate a rate or let them know what I was looking for on freight. So,
again, it goes back to exposure leads to opportunity. So he initially signed on with a company, but then he ended up finding a better opportunity with a smaller outfit. But with that smaller outfit, he was able to learn the business, right? Fellas, learn the business. It's not just about buying a truck and getting on the road. It's the brokering of the loads. It's understanding negotiating tactics. It's, not just having the truck, but having the trailer. See, somebody like myself who is not into trucking, I thought when you say the truck, you meant everything, right? But no, the truck's the front part. The trailer's the back part. It's two different parts of the puzzle. And some people have both. Some people just have one piece to it all. You have to figure out a way to get it together. But just understanding the nuances of the business, and that comes from learning. It comes from, you in essence had an apprenticeship, so to speak,
right,
with the guy as you learn the business. And so And you mentioned you all kind of had a marriage. Now speak a little bit about, because in the midst of this time frame is about the time that you got married too, right?
Right. So that was another thing. We had expenses, and I was paying this guy 20%.
Mm-hmm. To use his trailer. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this 20%, it was starting to add up.
Mm-hmm. I do a load, and I mean, I was making, $8,000, and I'm having to pay him $800. No, $1,600.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, like, that could go to my house. Like, my wife could sit at home and not work, and I could just give her that money, and it stay in my house. So that's when I was like, you can't be content.
Gotcha.
I was like, I got to get my trailer.
Interesting.
Once I got my trailer, now that money started coming into the house.
That's right. And on top of that, you had learned how to broker your own loads.
Right.
Wow. Fellas, there's wisdom there, right? It's cool to learn. And I mean, obviously, one of the things that I admire about Marlon's process is the fact that, he dipped his toe in the water, and it was a process. He wasn't the type of cat that went straight out there. And also, and this is another nuance, did you buy a new truck?
No, I bought a used truck.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. He dipped his toe in the water.
A lot of guys will go out and buy new trucks because they think that they're all nice, but at the end of the day, we make the same money.
Hear that. At the end of the day.
Actually, I'll make a little bit more because you're still paying $2,000 a month on the truck, where I paid $1,000, and I paid mine off in 3 years, where you still have 5 or 6 years to pay.
Hear that. Again, he dipped his toe in the water, but then he also learned the business from veterans. He learned how to operate. And so to that point, he didn't step in and go buy the shiny new truck and buy everything and buy all the glossy stuff on the front end. He dipped his toe in the water, learned the business, but then you understand that, you know what? I'm not making any more money by buying a $200,000 truck versus buying a used $40,000 truck or $50,000 truck. There's no difference in the money that I'm going to get paid. It's just all about how I appear. And so, fellas, pay attention to that. As we, a lot of us have entrepreneurial thought processes, or a lot of us have, the mindset of wanting to create something. But then some of us also have this dream where we need to go and just make this humongous splash and just buy the biggest, the baddest, the shiniest. That's not always the best way to go from the standpoint of being effective, right? That's what it's all about. It's about being effective. And so when we think about life, when we think about how we operate, when we think about purchasing, when we think about business, notice that I guess there are certain instances in which you have to go straight into the deep end. There's no way to progress into it. But if there's an opportunity for you to ease into it and learn along the way and minimize your downside or hedge yourself against some of the potential downsides, then dude, take those opportunities and learn. That's wisdom. Wisdom from Marlon Pennington. So, I teased this a little bit earlier about how you also at this point got married. And so you married into fatherhood. So talk a little bit about running a business, especially a business like trucking, where you're on the road a little bit. You're on the road a good bit. How getting married and coming into to marriage, was that challenging? But then maybe something that you learned along the way by running this, coming into marriage, but then also the complication of you married into fatherhood, right? So it's just like, talk a little bit about your journey in that department.
Well, marrying into fatherhood wasn't a big challenge to me. It was actually, I loved it. I still love it. Actually driving a truck in marriage was like the biggest challenge.
Really?
Because from the time before I started driving trucks, I was always at home. So it's like you never really miss what you have until it's gone. When I first started driving trucks, I was hustling. I was on grind mode. I stayed out for a month at a time, 3 weeks at a time. And I remember this one instance that I never forget. I went to my daughter's softball banquet, and they had a slideshow, and they showed everything that they did throughout the whole year. And they had Father-Daughter Day and all this stuff. And I missed every single game. I didn't make it to anything because I was so concerned on the money. Like, I just wanted to make sure I made money for the family, but I wasn't there to enjoy anything. And then at that point, it brought a tear to my eye, and I said, I never missed everything again. So the biggest challenge with driving a truck with me and family was balance. You have to, you can't let the money make you. You have to make the money, and you have to have balance the time. A lot of people forget what they make money for. You make money for your family and enjoy it. And if you can't enjoy it, what's more important to you, money or enjoying with family?
You say that most people lose sight of that. And I think a lot of us fellas, and I really want y'all to take a moment and really process what Marlon just said, because no matter how much or how little you're making, we get into this grind mode and we think that our job is just to generate revenue. But what is the purpose of a whole pile of money if you can't enjoy time with your family? What is the purpose of having millions and millions of dollars if you can't take time and go on vacation, or if you can't make it to banquets and go check some things out? Now, granted, we do understand that there are seasons in life. There are times in which, we might have to hustle a little bit more than necessary, than we're used to, so to speak, to kind of get things off the ground and do that. But when it comes to the notion of really taking time to think about why it is you do what you do, we have to evaluate that. We have to really think about that. And, like you mentioned, one of the challenges of, creating this transportation company was the fact that he's been on the road a little bit and he missed things. But it's like you don't understand what you've missed until it's gone, and that also forces you to make adjustments and changes. And so how have things, since that beginning part where you were hustling and on grind mode, how have things changed a little bit in regards to how you broker loads and how you schedule your time when you go in and out on the truck?
Well, now that I'm able to have years in, I know how to make my schedule. I know what my books are at home, so I know what I need to bring in. I was doing like 2 weeks, two weeks out, and I figured I could do a weekend, and I go out a week, and I could come home. And it's now that I'm able to, like, how do you say? I'm able to plan out a little better. It's all about planning. I got real good with my planning, so I'm able to make everything. I can make anything that I want to make.
Because you can schedule it. As long as you and the wife sync your Google calendars or whatever the Apple people use. What do y'all use Google too?
No, we use Apple.
Okay, whatever. So y'all,
Apple has us covered.
Whatever, man. So, and Apple's not paying for this episode. If you want more, you can pay for this, Apple. Nah, I'm just playing. But no. So to your point, as long as you know your calendar and you know the calendar of events and you all can sync things up, then you can schedule when you go in and when you go out. And it's interesting, you've now prioritized family over this. Now, granted, you still got to go make bread and all of that, but you can prioritize when you go out so that you can maximize the time and make the special events and the recitals and the practices and the games and all of that father-daughter or father-son stuff. You have the opportunity to make all that stuff happen due to scheduling. But it also goes back to you understanding the business. It goes back to you understanding what's important, but then taking the initiative to put that into action.
Right.
That is dope. That is dope. And so, when you think about like the trucking industry and, things changing and going forward, like I want to ask you from a forecasting perspective, like sometimes we see like, some of they're talking about like, automated drivers and all this kind of stuff. And some project that will impact like the trucking industry, I guess, before it impacts regular drivers or whatnot. And this is just forecasting based on your personal perspective. What do you see down the pipe when it comes to transportation, especially in the realm of trucking going forward?
I do see AI trucks driving. I mean, they're coming, but it's gonna be a while. They've dipped at it a little bit, but it's still a lot of stuff that they have to like take account for. You're unloading the freight, getting it to the facilities. I don't see it not happening. I just don't see it happening too soon. They're experimenting with it. And I see maybe another 15 to 20 years for it to really like to take over the industry. Gotcha. I don't see it coming. It's not taking over that fast. And the trucks out there right now for the automatic trucks, it'll cost like a lot of money.
So it's basically,
and I don't feel like the normal. I mean, the average person will be able to afford those. Only the big companies will be able to get them, and they won't get that many of them. And it's just, like I said, it's going to take a while for the price of those trucks to come down and for them to be on the road, like in abundance. I don't.
But you do see it coming. But you just
It's coming, but it's not that.
As far as the time, it's not like 2 years from now.
No,
it's not going to be okay. Gotcha. And probably the first, group or the first, area that will happen is probably with the major trucking companies with,
right.
Huge fleets. Or
they're the only ones going to be able to afford it
initially, and then after a while. But to your point, if you can forecast that, then you plan and prepare for various events and all of that, you can kind of see the writing on the wall, a few years in advance. You can start positioning yourself for your next iteration or your next transition in regards to to what's next. So fellas, if you're listening to this, it's interesting. You might not be in trucking, but there's a lot of brothers that listen that are truckers, or there's a lot of brothers listening that maybe due to your job, you travel a lot. And I think that there's a lot of challenge that kind of comes into play when you are married and you have kids, and in your job or business or whatever takes you away for considerable amounts of time. Hear what Marlon said. Realize what's important. It's like, yes, it's good to make the money. It's good to go and take care of the finances and everything. But what good is all the money if you don't have the time with your family? What good is all the money if you don't have the opportunity to spend it, and, to set things up for, great memories to be made on a regular basis? So be intentional in how you operate. Traveling is not a bad thing, right? You have to do what you have to do. But if you have the opportunity to organize yourself where you can still make sure that family is first, I think that's something that you can take from Marlon's story that, he learned, especially after the initial, that initial shock of that softball banquet that made him take a step back and really think about, priorities. Be intentional about how you operate. Be intentional about how you operate. Is there anything else, like when you think about like brothers who are out there who might have businesses, jobs, or whatever in which they're gone, for considerable amounts of time, any other words of wisdom or words of advice that you like to kind of drop to them?
Well, it's not just about people who are gone. Like, people do it in everyday lives. Like,
that's big.
If you have a job, like, just say, for instance, people associate like a nurse. It's a good job to have. I mean, you got to think about, on the outside, it looks good, but on the inside, they have family, they have kids who don't see their parents for a lot of time. Even doctors. They make good money, but they actually put in a lot of work. So
they leave out before the kids wake up, and sometimes you're coming home after everybody goes to bed.
They're going to bed. So it's like they're making good money, but are they actually happy? And that's the thing. Me and my buddies had a discussion about this a couple of weeks ago. It was like, we actually had more fun when we were broke than we do with money.
Wow.
It's because of the responsibility of money, and like, you have to pay for this, you have to pay for that, versus I had this money, I'm gonna have fun. Basically, you enjoyed yourself. And I feel like once we get into adulthood and we get all the responsibility and we have to pay bills and stuff, you lose the sight of having fun and enjoying life.
I would tell you, and fellas and ladies listening too, I know we got ladies that listen in. One of the things that I know about Marlon is he's about having fun, right? So we always talk about, various trips and going places and doing things. And, he's always talking about going on a dirt bike and taking his son out and they ride dirt bikes and four-wheelers, or doing the thing with the jet skis. And, it's about embracing the moment and having fun, right? And what that kind of speaks to me is, as we grow up, we become responsible, which we're supposed to be responsible, but being responsible does not mean that you have to delete the fun out of your life, right? We have to have fun. We have to smile. We have to laugh. It's like, I don't want to be this tight-lipped, super serious all the time dude that doesn't know how to loosen up and have a good time, because at what point in our life do we miss that? At what point in our life do we lose the importance of having fun? I mean, you hear it all the time. Laughter is the best medicine, right? I mean, laughter is typically associated with fun. So, again, take care of business. Take care of responsibility. I mean, that we're called, from a spiritual perspective, and then just from the standpoint of, our families, we're called to take care of our families. But then we also need to have fun. Our kids and our wives need to see us smiling. They need to be happy at times as well. They need to find joy and have experiences that allow them to laugh and smile, and it's not always so just tight-lipped and serious. And so make sure to, as we schedule everything, make sure to schedule some fun in there, fellas. Make sure to schedule some fun in there. Any parting words there, brother?
And enjoy life.
I dig it. Well, fellas, man, we want to thank my man, Marlon Pennington, for coming on and sharing information, about his journey, his story, growing up in Compton to, creating penny transportation. And I know you're not on social media. This is like one of the only fools in America that ain't on social media. But
social media is the devil.
That's another conversation. But if somebody listening is looking to connect with you or connect with penny transportation, is there any way for folks to kind of look up, like if they need some loads booked or whatever, or they just want to maybe even ask you a question about the transportation industry, or maybe they're interested in jumping into it, is there any way or email or something in which folks can connect with you?
Man, word of mouth. When they connect to you, then they connect to me.
Yo, hit me up if you're interested in getting in touch with penny transportation. I got you. This brother's being stealth on us, but nah, it's all good. I can connect you to him if you all have any questions about about the transportation industry, starting in trucking, just wanting to connect. I can hook it up. Just you can email me blackfathersnow@gmail.com, or obviously hit me blackfathersnow.com on all the social media handles. Black Fathers Now, I am MikeDorsey.com. Hit me in the DM. I can connect you with Marlon. He definitely is wide open to answering questions about if you have anything specific about the trucking industry, or even just the notion of just balancing a business and travel, because that's something that I think a lot of people have issues with or have concerns with. So hit me up. I'll connect you with him. And as always, make sure that you all subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Oh, check this out. On Amazon Alexa, if you enable any pod on Amazon Alexa, you can now listen to Black Fathers Now via Amazon Alexa. So check that out. That's a new way to listen to the podcast. If you're interested in having me come out to speak to your group, your church, your organization, definitely hit me. I am MikeDorsey.com. Hit the contact info. I'd love to come out and speak. Grab a copy of the book, Dynamic Black Fatherhood Manifesto. Awesome book that helps to celebrate Black fatherhood. Really, this is an awesome book, fellas. Definitely grab it. And ladies, if you're listening, grab one for the dude in your life. And this is brought to you by BlackFamilyApparel.com. Visit BlackFamilyApparel.com to grab some awesome apparel that celebrates the nuances of the Black family. And until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always, always, always visit BlackFathersNow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.